welcome to the Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that suddenly remembered it's Charlemagne. When we think of the 1914-1918 European conflict, we tend to think of trenches, massive loss of life, humanity at its worst. But there's a board game that may just have us calling it World War fun. I am, of course, speaking of the First World War from Phalanx Games and Mayfair Games.
Ich groll nicht, und wenn das Herz auch bricht, ewig verlorenes Lieb, ewig verlorenes Lieb, ich groll nicht, ich groll.
In the First World War, 2 to 4 players are going to reenact the events that took place during that 1914-1918 conflict. Now, essentially, what is going to happen is there are 4 factions. Each side, the Allies and the Central Powers, are divided into 2. So you have the Western Allies, which are Britain, France, and the United States, and you have the Eastern Allies, Russia, and some of the minor states. For the Central Powers, of course, you have Germany, and then you have Austria and some of the minor states there as well. The game takes place over 6 turns. 1914 gets 2 turns, but then you have 1915, 1916, 1917, and 1918. During each turn, each faction has 4 actions they can do, and they're taken one after the other. Now, the game board itself is divided into 3 theaters. You have the Western Theater, you have the Eastern Theater, and you have the Italian Theater. And each theater is then divided up into a number of fronts. The Western Theater has 4 fronts, the Italian Theater has 2 fronts, and the Eastern Theater has 5 fronts. Now, each faction has a number of armies. These army units have certain information printed on them. They say what turn they come into play. They say what their combat strength is. They also have some identification numbers that don't really matter for gameplay. You also have a number of dummy armies, which look just like real armies from the backside, but on the front side there's nothing there. They're fake. Now, what you're going to do on your turn is you're going to deploy your armies. You're going to deploy them face down around the board in the different fronts. You don't necessarily place them on the cities on the board. You simply place them in the fronts. And that's where putting your dummy armies is important, is because you're trying to, maybe where you're not so strong, make it look like you're strong and kind of freak out your enemies. So you may trick them into deploying in certain areas, or keep them from attacking you. Now, what's going to happen is on your turn you can do a number of things. First of all, you can attack your enemy. You can move from one front to an adjacent front, or you can do a strategic movement. You can move up to 2 units from one front to any other fronts, not only in the same theater, but into any of the theaters as you wish. So really, movements and attacks are kind of primarily what you're going to be doing here. Now, when you do an attack, you essentially designate the front you're going to attack in. You and your opponent must reveal all of the armies there. You remove all the dummy armies, so now you know what's real and what isn't. Whoever has the most actual armies there gets a +1 advantage, and you give a +1 modifier to your lead unit. Each side selects a lead unit. Then each side rolls a dice, and you add the dice to the total number on your lead unit. So if your lead unit was a 3 and you had more armies, it would be a 4. You would add the die roll to it. Whoever has the superior number of the die roll wins. If it's a tie, if it's a push, both armies lose their lead army. Otherwise, the winner stays while the lead army of the loser leaves. Additionally, the loser then begins to push down an attack line toward the other side of the front. Now, this is important. Some of the cities are square that you can capture. Square cities give you victory points, and the circular cities are supply. They allow you to bring killed units back into the game later, so you want to take those to deny your enemy to bring in reinforcements. And then, of course, if you push all the way back to their base, the base at the end of the line, instead of taking that, what you do is you force your enemy to gain a number of surrender points, up to 4 surrender points. And what's going to happen is, at the very end of the turn, first of all, if there are no armies defending anything, everybody's going to push on fronts where there's nothing defending it. And those surrender points are going to move up. The person with those surrender points is going to do, at the end of the turn, he's going to roll his dice, and if a die roll comes up that is equal to or less than his surrender point value, he loses the game. That's simple. Now, there's some other things going on here, too. For instance, in combat, if you roll an S, you can get a special chit. You can reach into a cup and grab a chit that may give you certain attack modifiers, certain advantages, possibly some disadvantages. But generally, the chits are good things. Sometimes they're just things to fake out people. But generally, chits are good things that can help you in attacks or defense on the board somehow, give you plus modifiers. Now, after 6 turns, nobody has been forced to surrender. Then the alliance, the two factions from each alliance, the Central Powers or allies, they will add up all of their victory points, and whoever has the most victory points wins the game. In the event of a tie, the Central Powers win. What does Cody think of the First World War? And you know I have some deep thoughts because I'm referring to myself in the third person. First of all, let me just say the rule book for this game is a mess. It's not well written at all. You have to read through it several times because there's some concepts you got to wrap your brain around, but it's just not well laid out, not good. I was not impressed with this rule book. There are some rule books online that you can find, some amended rule books, some different rules that can help you a little bit, but just generally I was really not impressed with the rule book here. It was very difficult to get through, very difficult to understand. That being said, love gameplay. This is so much fun. It's kind of a it's very Euro-y. You see this, you think, oh, it's a war game. You know what? It's thematically a war game, but mechanically, it's not. Mechanically, this feels very Euro-y. With the alternating turns where everybody goes back and forth, and you get the turns, and you essentially take actions. You can decide what actions you're going to do, and you're pushing along lines to deny points. Now, there's some dice rolling, and there is a direct conflict. Don't misunderstand me. It's not really a Euro game, but it feels Euro-y as you're playing it. It feels more Euro-y than war game. I think this is a game that war gamers will like and Euro gamers will like because the war theme is strong enough that war gamers will like it, but the Euro mechanics are good enough that I think Euro gamers will like it. So, ironically, a game about the First World War may be the game that brings peace to war gamers and Euro gamers. So I really, really like the First World War from Mayfair Games and Phalanx Games. I think it's just a tremendously fun and unique and different kind of game. I can't really think of anything I'd compare it to. I didn't know what to expect going in. I was thinking, well, I like the theme a lot. Is the gameplay going to be good? It is. It's very good. I got a kick out of it. So the recommendation for the discriminating gamer for the First World War is buy it. If you'd like to learn more about World War I recommend the following books. The First World War by John Keegan. The First World War Complete History by Martin Gilbert. The Guns of August by Barbara Tuchman. The Price of Glory, Verdun, 1916 by Alistair Horn. And Tannenberg, 1914, Clash of Empires by Dennis E. Showalter. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. Please leave a comment here on YouTube, on Facebook, on our website, thediscriminatinggamer.com, or on Board Game Geek. And please, please, please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are The Discriminating Gamer, and I'll tell you right now, that game, it's no First World Bore.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
This isn't going to work. I'm sorry. Sorry.
What? I'll play Settlers of Caftan.